This video will not end until I win a treble with Manchester United. The 1998-99 season for Manchester United is widely recognised as one of the best seasons in club football ever. Sir Alex Ferguson's side managed to win the Premier League, FA Cup and Champions League in the same season, culminating in that historic night in Barcelona. So I have loaded up FM24 using the real-world database to see if I can achieve the same feat as Sir Alex. Kicking off the save, we have the current Manchester United squad, so I'll be facing some of the same issues as outgoing manager Erik ten Hag. Sorry, Eric. One thing I do have in my favour is a tactic from GYR, as we will be running his 𝗠𝗢𝗘𝗚 tactic, which is a 4-2-3-1 and looks like this in-game. With the players in the tactic, I'm feeling optimistic about our chances this season, and we'll be giving game time to Jadon Sancho as he's not upset me. Competitions wise, we have all 3 English competitions and of course the Champions League. And looking at the Premier League odds, we're 11-1 to win the title and predicted to finish in 4th in the table. But before we get into the results of season number 1, if you have not already ordered FM24, please consider doing so via the link in the description. That will take you to the Fanatical website, where if you use that link and my code HoodFM at checkout, you can save yourselves up to 22% on this year's game. It's cheaper than Steam, and also support me as a creator, which would be greatly appreciated. So let's get into the results of season number 1 with Manchester United. Flash forward to the business end of the season, and our dream of this being a one-season video was very much alive and kicking. We were fighting things out with Liverpool at the top of the Premier League and took on Manchester City in the Champions League quarter-finals and the FA Cup semi-finals. This side passed the Pep test with flying colours, sending Guardiola back to the Etihad empty-handed for the first trophyless season since his first one in charge of Manchester City. Therefore, we had one final appearance in the diary already, and we'd face Liverpool in the FA Cup final at the end of the season. But we had another English foe in our way in the Champions League. We beat Arsenal 1-0 at Old Trafford thanks to a goal from Jadon Sancho, but choked in the big moment at the Emirates, losing the game 2-0, meaning this challenge would continue for yet another season. And it turned out choking in the big moments was a common theme of this season, and our Premier League title hopes were coming down to one pivotal match away against Liverpool at Anfield. Yet again, we stumbled to a disappointing defeat and said goodbye to the Premier League title this season. But we could redeem ourselves in the FA Cup, right? Nope, we bottled that one yet again to watch arch rivals Liverpool pick up a league and FA Cup double. We had a good first season in this challenge, so it felt like we were only just a couple of pieces away. The board gave me a transfer budget of £71 million, but I wanted to raise some more funds to allow us to be active in the transfer market and strengthen all over the pitch, bringing in some hot wonder kid talent. First of all, I wanted to address the defensive third of the pitch, so I pulled in Antonio Silva from Benfica for £55 million and right back Michael Coyote from Fiorentina for £40.5 million. I also felt like we lacked a little bit of firepower and competition for Rasmus Højlund up front, so I signed Karim Konaté from Red Bull Salzburg for just under £20 million. Oh, and to make things interesting, I've promoted homegrown talent Kobbie Mainoo into the starting 11 for the season. Let's see how he develops. We get a swift opportunity to get our own back on Liverpool from last season as we face them in the Community Shield as the season opener. However, the media don't think the signings have made a blind bit of difference, as we're still 11-1 to win the Premier League this season. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really want to recap this season because it was so depressing for me to watch unfold. It started with such promise as we thumped Liverpool 5-1 at Wembley to win the Community Shield, but things came crashing down around me when they mattered most. Ultimately, in the Premier League, we couldn't show the form of champions as we were only able to take 4 points from 8 games against Leeds, Bournemouth, Aston Villa and Brentford. You don't win titles with results like that, and Liverpool coasted to their second successive Premier League, winning the title by 9 points. We also made it all the way to the FA Cup final, but our run to the final was easier than you'd expect, as we only faced 2 Premier League sides in our 6 FA Cup fixtures, but I guess you can only beat what's in front of you. It was Brentford in our way in the final, and even though they took the lead through Ivan Toney, we were able to battle back to win the game in extra time with goals from Garnacho, Holland and Sancho. And in the Champions League, we went one step further than last season and actually made it all the way to the Champions League final. We'd come up against Kylian Mbappe and PSG in that final, and too many players didn't show up on the big stage yet again, as Mbappe opened the scoring from the spot before Milan Skriniar tucked home a second after a goal-mouth scrap. This saw PSG win their first Champions League title, so now I feel really crap about myself. However, I was given £107 million to spend going into Season 3, so things aren't all bad. Moving into Season 3, the Saudis came calling and gifted us £150 million whilst taking 2 aging players off my hands. Casemiro joined Al Ahly for £50 million, and he was swiftly followed out the door by Raphael Varane, who joined Al Hilal for a whopping £100 million. I combined that Saudi money to bring in a new winger to light up that right-hand side, and Spanish youngster Nico Williams joined us from Athletic Bilbao for £149 million. However, the departures of Casemiro and Varane left 2 holes in my side. First, I plugged the defensive hole with the signing of Antonio Rudiger from Real Madrid for just £14 million. He still has it, even at 32 years old. In midfield, I replaced the serial winner in Casemiro with another serial winner as we signed Leon Goretzka from Bayern Munich for £30 million. I added Serbian international Lazar Samardžić to give Bruno some games off, as he's not getting any younger. Samardžić joined from Bayern Leverkusen after just 1 season at the club for £35.5 million. And finally, I scored another German in backup goalkeeper Alexander Nõbel, because, you know, goalkeeper injuries are a big thing in FM24. So with those additions, the team is looking good going into this season, with a combination of 4 players with a 4-star rating in the final third of the pitch. Competitions-wise, we have the same 5 trophies on offer as last season, although only 3 of them count for this challenge. Our odds have shortened in the league, as we are now 13-2 to win the title, and we finally got our first player in the Media Dream 11 in the summer signing of Nico Williams. So in season number 3, we were actually very impressive in several competitions. First, we bagged ourselves the Carabao Cup, winning an all-Manchester final, beating Manchester City, who are now managed by Thomas Tuchel, thanks to this lovely strike from Bruno Fernandes. It was nice to win the Carabao Cup, but ultimately, it means nothing for this challenge. The second trophy we added was another FA Cup, but this time it felt like we earned it a bit more, beating Tottenham and Manchester City on the road to Wembley before taking down Brighton in the final to win back-to-back FA Cups. But it was in the Premier League that things became really interesting. Going into the final game of the season, we were 2 points clear at the top of the league, but the fixture computer threw up one hell of a final game as we'd entertain Manchester City at Old Trafford for all the marbles. If we avoided defeat, we would win the Premier League title. However, if we lost, the title would be going to the blue half of Manchester. We dominated the game and even had an XG of 3.16, but failed to find that all-important breakthrough to see the game end 0-0. But we did lift the Premier League trophy for the first time since Sir Alex left the club. In the Champions League, we were able to beat some real top caliber sides as we progressed through the competition, taking out Dortmund and 14-time champions Real Madrid. In the semi-finals, we came up against PSG and were taught a lesson in Paris, losing the game 3-0, with Neymar scoring the third after returning to the club from Saudi Arabia. I guess FM can be really strange sometimes. We won the game back in Manchester with goals from Coyote and Samardžić, but the 2-0 win wasn't enough to overturn the aggregate score, so PSG knocked us out of the Champions League for a second season in a row to end the dream for season number 3. It was a treble, just not the treble. I have another £93 million to spend for next season, but it feels like we're really getting close. I went big in the summer and spent a total of £148 million without selling anyone. Who doesn't love installments? First up, I replaced the outgoing Antonio Rudiger with a man United will link with a lot in real life in Kim Min-jae. Korean defender joined from Bayern Munich for £70 million. I also added in some cover at the back with Brazilian Renan, who arrived from UAE for a small fee of $9.25 million. And lastly, I added some fresh legs into the middle of the park and signed 𝗕𝗨𝗬𝗜 from Atalanta for an initial £69 million. The team is looking great going into this year, and Marcus Rashford and Karim Konaté are now two legit superstars, and I will be looking to them to carry us to this challenge. Competitions wise, we have the same 5 yet again, but after last season's title win, we are now 7-2 to win the league and second favourites behind Manchester City. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. The Premier League was on lock pretty early and we cakewalked to the title, winning things by 21 points in the end, only losing 4 times all season and finishing with a plus 80 goal difference. So that just meant that we had to get the job done in knockout competitions. We opened our FA Cup run in January with a trip to London to take on Spurs, and we managed to scrape through with a 3-2 win before knocking off Championship West Brom 5-0. After that, it was more comfortable victories against Everton and then Charlton to set up a huge semi-final clash with Liverpool. Simultaneously, in the Champions League, we were able to progress through the round of 16 tie with Atletico Madrid running out 9-4 winners on aggregate. April was a huge month for the season as we take on Dortmund in the Champions League quarter-finals and Liverpool in the FA Cup semi-final. First, we travelled to Dortmund where we saw our lead cancelled out twice by the German side, but I saw enough to know that we'd be okay back at Old Trafford. 10 days later, our firepower turned out to be too much for Dortmund as we were rampant in front of goal, smashing home 6 goals to win the tie 8-5 on aggregate. At Wembley for the FA Cup next, Rashford opened the scoring early and we were able to double that lead on the 10-minute mark through Nico Williams. On the half-hour mark, Curtis Jones pulled a goal back for Klopp's men, but we never really looked out of control in this game. In the second half, 𝗕𝗨𝗬𝗘 did miss a penalty, but we were able to allow the supporters to relax right at the death as Marcus Rashford fired past Alisson. This saw us advance to the FA Cup final where we take on Manchester City, but first we had to try and book our ticket to the Champions League final where we'd face 14-time winners Real Madrid. This time the first leg was at Old Trafford and we laid down a real statement of intent, sticking 5 past Madrid with Marcus Rashford scoring 2 penalties in injury time. Surely that's 1 foot into the final, right? Back at the Bernabeu, Madrid came out all guns blazing, needing 5 goals with no reply to send the game to extra time, but Armando Broja saw his early goal ruled out for offside. Madrid did take the lead on the night through who else but Jude Bellingham, but Rashford was on hand to restore that 5-goal advantage just 60 seconds later. Federico Valverde did get another one for the Galacticos, but again, we were able to cancel it out, winning the tie 7-2 on aggregate and booking our tickets to the final at the Stade de France. So at this stage, we had the league all wrapped up and we had 2 finals to play. First was a Manchester derby in the FA Cup final. Rasmus Højlund opened the scoring for us in the first 10 minutes before turning provider for Marcus Rashford, who made it 2-0. City did manage to pull a goal back through £105 million January signing Karim Adeyemi, but this was just a small glimmer of hope for the blue half of Manchester. The goals seemed to fire us up as we really clicked through the gears, adding goals through Højlund, Rashford and Kim Min-jae to lift the FA Cup for a 3rd season in a row. So this left us 1 game away from glory, and it was the Champions League final in Paris. And who else would we be up against but PSG, the side that have sent us home in the Champions League for the past 2 seasons. This would actually be a repeat of the 2025 Champions League final, which PSG won, but we're a completely different animal now. We took to the field knowing we were 90 minutes from completing the challenge, but this was one of the craziest games you will ever see. Nico Williams settled the nerves inside 3 minutes, firing home from a second phase of a free kick, but PSG thought they'd hit back instantly through wonder kid Xavi Simons, only to see his effort ruled out for offside. So we had a slender lead going into the half-time, but on the hour mark, Marcus Rashford was able to double the lead after some pinball in the PSG penalty area. At this point, I'm thinking the video is basically over, but apparently PSG had other ideas. With 10 minutes of the game remaining, Gonçalo Ramos pulled a goal back after Onana came and flapped it across. And then it happened. In Fergie time, PSG drew level. The French champions worked a nice throw-in routine to Carlos Soler, who fired home to send us into extra time. Both sides had chances in extra time, but it felt like things were slipping away from us until the 119th minute, where a moment of magic happened. We lumped the ball into the penalty area towards 𝗦𝗧𝗏, but the ball bounced as 𝗪𝗏𝗏 went to clear the ball and he smashed it into 𝗪𝗏𝗏's face, and the ball flew past the helpless Donnarumma to see us finally lift the Champions League and complete a historic treble. If you want to play on with this save from this point, links to the files will be put in my Patreon, and links to that will be listed down below.
United!